Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining from all parts of the world today. We're here to interview Camille Jimenez, who is the founder of Penny Pairs. This is the third of I Get Inspired series, so we're really excited to have such an amazing entrepreneur here today. So Penny Pairs is a sustainable jewelry brand. They're based in the Philippines, but they ship to conscious consumers from all over the world. And one of the things that we're really interested in talking about today is sustainability and how Camille has actually woven sustainability through every angle of her business. So welcome, Camille. I don't know if you'd like to introduce yourself, but we're really happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. So Penny Pairs is just a small brand based in the Philippines where we say every hour is golden hour. So when we started Penny Pairs in 2018, we really wanted it to be as easy as possible for women everywhere to feel special and have affordable, well-made jewelry accessible. So, like you mentioned, as the time went on, we really wanted to continue doing that, but also thinking more about doing it ethically and sustainably, which is why, as you mentioned earlier, we really try to make it um, reach conscious consumers all around the world. So sustainability goes beyond just how our products are made, but also how we try to design products that can be worn again and again, because we believe that sustainability really is more than just using recycled materials or um, making ethical production, but it's really at the core of it using products that are usable in the long term.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And one of the things I saw on your website that I really liked was saying that sustainability wasn't a buzzword, it was a promise. And I think that really encompasses the importance of us thinking about the world of fine jewelry and demi-fine jewelry in a different way, because it brings so much joy to consumers from all around the world to wear jewelry. But then the jewelry trade and manufacturing jewelry is so kind of ridden with complexity and waste, essentially. And so it's really interesting seeing that that's something that you've brought together as a brand and you're actually educating your customers about. I think it would be really interesting to hear more about how you started the brand. So I know that you were working in PR. Maybe you could explain a little bit more about your entrepreneurial journey.
Okay, so I started working in PR in 2018, and since I always had to go to these events, represent all the clients I was working with, I realized that it was so hard to find affordable jewelry that wasn't, how do I say, I guess expensive in a sense, since I was going to lots of events and you have to, constantly dress up. It was really a problem for me that I couldn't find good jewelry at an affordable price. And another issue that I realized was that when you enter a jewelry store, especially in retail, if you enter a mall here, all the jewelry is covered by glass. You have to deal with a sales lady, and everything was price available upon request. So that was kind of intimidating, especially for someone like me, someone so young, right? And I'm sure that there are so many women who relate to that problem. So when we started Penny Pairs, I really just wanted to address that, and that's why we made it online. So we decided to do an e-commerce business because we really wanted it to be something that was accessible to everybody. And there's no barriers that stop you from purchasing the jewelry. It's just straight to the point. You know how much it costs. You know when it's gonna get to you. You get to choose exactly the designs that you feel like will look good on you. And that's also why we keep our price point 8 to 10 times less than retail, especially for the quality of the materials you get. We only use 925 silver and 18 karat gold, and all of our gemstones, all of our findings are all made from conflict free materials. So we don't use mined diamonds or um, anything taken from the earth. So even our crystals are lab grown. So that's why we really believe in conflict free materials and ethical manufacturing.
Yeah. And that's just really amazing to think about a brand that firstly is an e-commerce brand. So you're already moving the experience of consumers in terms of what they're used to, right? Which is going to a jewelry counter and feeling like you're getting stared down and worrying, having that stress of, oh, can I afford this? Is this going to look good on me? And there's just so much anxiety that accompanies the traditional jewelry purchasing experience. So you've already leveraged that and made that completely different. But then on top of that, you're actually looking at how can I make the stones and materials that we use completely like cruelty free, kind of earth friendly. And I think that's such an interesting part of what Penny Pairs is doing at the moment. And it's also really wonderful that you're so upfront about it. So you're always talking about it. I saw a post recently about how on Earth Day you donated all of your profits to reforestation. And I think that that's really interesting to see how a brand can also be kind of an eco warrior, and to be tying all of those things together, I think is a really interesting thing that you're doing. And I wonder, how did that come into place? Is that something that you were thinking about from the very beginning, or is it as you started to educate yourself on the manufacturing process that you thought, maybe there's space for us to do this better?
Yeah, so as you said, sustainability for me wasn't just a buzzword, but a promise. And it really was a step-by-step process. So, we never claim to be perfect, but we believe that we are making progress in our sustainability. So currently, not all of our products are made of sustainable materials, but hopefully by the end of the year, more than half of everything will be 100% recycled silver. And um, as time goes by, like you mentioned during Earth Day, we donated 100% of our profit to reforestation. There are a lot of things we're working on that we hope will continue to promote a sustainable lifestyle. So in the future, hopefully, for every product we buy, we'll be able to donate or plant a tree, and it will go to the maintenance of the tree. So it's really looking beyond how our products are made, but also how can we make a difference in our community that will make an impact in the future. And I think that was really something that I wanted to do ever since I thought about this brand, because I really believe that it's not just a brand, it's really how I can make a difference in a good way and how I can create beautiful things in a beautiful way.
Yeah. And I think that you can really see that throughout the brand when it comes to the website, and even like looking through the Instagram, all of the posts are just so beautifully put together. And then the packaging, it's the same. You see it across every aspect of the brand experience. And so how did you find that process of creating a brand from scratch whilst you were working in PR? I imagine the PR side of things was a little bit easier, but how did you arm yourself with the right people, the right processes and tools to then create this e-commerce brand, taking care of all of those different aspects of the customer experience?
Okay, so that's a really good question, because it's really something I try to share with everybody on our team, is that at the end of the day, we always go back to the customer experience and really making every day special for a customer. That's Penny Paris' tagline, is make every day special. And that's something we try to show in every touch point that the customer experiences our brand, from when they see our ads on social media or when they see our posts or even our website. We really try to make it an experience to remember, an experience that makes them feel empowered. It's the special feeling that you get from wearing the jewelry, even when you're just at home. I feel like it's something also that I realized during this pandemic, during COVID, is that women weren't just buying jewelry because they wanted to, impress other people or show people that they were wearing jewelry, but they were wearing it even at home. And I guess that really shows that it's more about the empowerment you get from wearing the jewelry, and how I was able to communicate that through every platform, I feel is really going back to why, which is to make every day special for our customers. And from even our customer service, even our packaging, we try to really show that the essence of our brand.
That's really interesting. And do you find that, so during that process of prioritizing the customer and putting the customer's experience at the center of everything that you do as a brand, did that come with its own challenges? Was it sometimes difficult to actually prioritize the customer instead of, like, let's say, some logistic considerations or packaging considerations? Where did that show up?
I guess the important thing was trying to communicate it in a way that everybody understood. So I guess the challenge would really be for me, for example, there's some jewelry or some things that aren't really my taste, but people would buy them, and that really shows that the customer is really who decides what's nice and what's beautiful. It's not me who decides, it's really the customer. So a way that we were able to address that challenge was we tried to do a lot more feedback based analysis. So we get some reviews. We get a lot of reviews from our customers, try to hear what they feel about our jewelry, about the products, about the process,
Yeah.
and try to implement it slowly one by one throughout the years.
That's really interesting. And, I guess that's something that a lot of jewelry businesses don't necessarily take into account or think of, is the value of customer reviews and actually asking your customers what they want to see from you next. I know that in the world of technology, that's something that is very close to many technology businesses, but it's not necessarily something that e-commerce brands keep close to their hearts. So it's really interesting to see that that's played a role. I wonder whether you could speak to the influencer side of things, since that's something that you leverage very successfully with Penny Pairs. I think that a lot of people are curious to see how can they get their product in front of more people by maybe using influencer marketing or perhaps a different social strategy.
So I really feel like what sets our influencer marketing apart is that we really try to find people who match our brand's lifestyle and really share the same values as our brand. So when it comes to choosing the influencers that we partner with or the partnerships that we have, we try to really find the kinds of people who will genuinely wear our jewelry and the kinds of people who really feel the way that we feel as well, which is, we care about sustainability, we care about living a conflict-free, ethical manufacturing, and all of these important things that, a lot of influencers might not have the same values. So we really try our best to partner with the right people and make sure that what they're saying is really the truth and really genuine. Because even though they're higher, let's say, influencers that have a lot of followers or influencers that may have a lot of people who check their accounts, it's not necessarily that they are the right fit for our brand. So it's really about finding the people who can speak about your brand in a genuine way.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think that again goes back to the idea of keeping the customer at the heart of it. So only choosing influencers that directly relate to your customer or would be your customer, and then their network scaling outwards in the same way. So having a similar profile of people who follow them. Okay, so I know that your brand is a pretty young brand, so I wonder whether you'd like to share with us some of your highlights from being in business and also some of the things that you struggled with and challenges that you're really proud that you overcame.
Mm-hmm. So I guess what we really struggled with at the beginning was finding the right um, way to communicate our brand with the right creatives. And I guess it wasn't necessarily easy at the start to have the best pictures and the best, how do I say, a website and all of these things. But it really was a learning process. And I think we really took it step by step. So that's how we faced those challenges, was just we kept trying to improve, finding ways that we could become better, which was, if we realized that these photos weren't working so well, we'd try a different style. Or that's a nice thing about for me being with a small brand, is that we just realized that there's always ways to improve and ways to grow.
Yeah, that's really an interesting point, and I think something that is often overlooked during the initial creation process. There are so many different directions that you can take a brand, and so starting to uncover and unchisel the real personality of your brand through like the visual content, the tonality, the way that you represent yourself, and every kind of outer edge of that process. I think that that's something a lot of young e-commerce businesses and also just businesses in general struggle with. I think what's really valuable about what you're saying is actually that it is a process and that you have to have the ambition to continue improving and searching for more, and not be afraid to kind of disregard some of the things that you've already created if they're not a fit. So yeah, I think that that's something a lot of the e-commerce businesses that are part of ecomConnect can actually learn from, is to be more ambitious in how they create that inner world of their brand from the outset. Yeah, I also was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about this kind of lab grown precious stones that you're using. So the lab grown opals, lab grown pearls, the recycled silver jewelry. How did all of that kind of come about? How did you manage the relationship building with ethical factories? Is that something that you kind of ask for connections in that space? Or is it something that you just research yourself? A lot of the jewelry brands that are part of ecomConnect are like handcrafted jewelry. So I think it'd be interesting as an insight to hear about how this looked like for you.
Yeah, so when we wanted to go towards building a sustainable brand, we of course it's important that the products that we use were sustainable. And I guess it's kind of difficult to find a manufacturer that has all of these certifications, but I guess the important part was really trying to build, as you said, that relationship. So as time went on, we just really tried to become friends with, these people who would create the jewelry. And it's different for me, I guess, from the handmade jewelry types, because it's a lot of um even PR with your suppliers. It's like every single person that you deal with, you have to have a good relationship with, so that you have better communication. And the communication is something I feel like is very important, that a lot of people take for granted, is that if you have clear communication with your suppliers, you'll always have a better output because you guys will understand each other. And we really just have a good relationship with, our suppliers, and we trust them, and they trust us. And our lab grown opals and pearls and everything, it was just really something I really pushed for, I really wanted to find. So that's how we were able to get there.
That's really interesting. And I think it's so admirable as well that you knew what you wanted and you really like actually pushed to find that. I think that one of the transitions that a lot of people struggle with when it comes to entrepreneurship and starting up their own brand online is the communication side of things, because obviously we're all socialized in different cultures, different parts of the world. And so what it is to be a human being is very different in all of those different countries. And so then in some countries, it might be considered respectful to actually not communicate certain things. And what I think is fascinating about the entrepreneurial journey, especially when you're creating a product, is that communication, all of the things that you communicate and don't communicate are then scaled outwards into your product. So very interesting that you're talking now about public relations with your actual suppliers and how you handle that and how much you communicate and how direct you are with what you actually want from the product. I think that's a valuable takeaway for anyone listening, is actually to be also very ambitious in what you want and how you want it, and to actually be vocal about that, because otherwise other people can't really help to make that happen. So yeah, I wonder if you have any tips to share in terms of, putting everything together. So I know you've just created an all-round excellent brand, so we can never really spend enough time unpacking that. But is there anything that you would have liked to hear when you were at the point when you were starting out that might be valuable for some of the people listening?
I guess when I was starting out, the best thing I would want for someone to tell me is just really to trust the process. Like what I mentioned earlier, it's really something that I struggled with at the start, because I really didn't know what to do next. I guess when you're starting a business as an entrepreneur, you don't really know where you're going. You don't really have a clear direction of what you want. But as time went on, I tried to set that for myself. I tried to say, okay, this is what I want my brand to be in a few years. And these are the things that I want to accomplish. And it's just taking it day by day and understanding that it's never going to be perfect. So you just have to keep working on it so that it gets better and better over time.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you for sharing that. I think that that's such a valuable thing to remember, especially in these times with, COVID and how unpredictable everything has become with that. I think it's really important as a message for people to really take it day by day and to be kind and patient with themselves through their entrepreneurial journey. I wanted to know also what's next for Penny Pears. So do you have any upcoming plans? Is there anything that you're focusing on in particular? Do you have any collaborations on the horizon? Yeah.
So one collaboration that I'm really excited for actually is in partnership with For the Future. So they're this organization that does good work here in the Philippines. So their projects is the reforestation project, and we're building a collection with them of three or more products that for every product that you purchase, it goes to a certain advocacy. So one advocacy would be the reforestation program. Another advocacy would be bringing clean water to communities. And then another advocacy would be bringing light. So it's called the 1 Million Lights Project. And that brings light also to communities here in the Philippines that were ravaged by typhoons. And, they lost their electricity sources. And I think it's nice to show that jewelry can really make an impact in other ways other than what we intended. It's something small that can make a big difference, and that's a collaboration that I'm very excited for, that we're working on now. And other things for Penny Pears is we're really trying to become a carbon neutral company. So we're working towards that and lessening our carbon footprint. So that's other goals we have.
This is so exciting because it feels like you're such a young company and you've accomplished so much in the amount of time that you've existed, and you're constantly doing more and looking at more ways to be sustainable and to contribute and to give back. And I just find that actually very, very inspiring. And I think that that's something that everyone can take away with them as well. And I just wondered, like, what drives you as an entrepreneur? Like, how does this feel to you being at the helm of this business, and what part of it lights you up?
I guess for me, it's just the fact that I'm very young, and you know how they say the youth is what our future is. And it's my responsibility as a young person to care about the world that I'm going to be living in the next years. And, the world that we're going to be giving our future children. It's something that does drive me. And that's why I really want to make any difference that I can. And I guess this business is just something that was built out of passion for me. And it's something I truly enjoy and truly love working on. And the more we can give will really inspire others as well to do the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful point. And it's amazing because a lot of the entrepreneurs who are part of ecomConnect and the various projects that the ITC works on, they are working with sustainable materials and providing employment for artisans in remote villages. And it's just so incredible to see that when people just really put something into the world that is thoughtful, that comes from a place of passion, that it also actually doesn't come at the expense of the earth. And so it's just very valuable to see that that's something that drives you, because I think that there are lots of people listening right now, and also the people who are part of the wider platform, who really live and breathe that ethos. And so, yeah, it's very kind of inspiring to me to hear this from you. I think I saw a question from Andy. So how was it like when you started to scale quickly and internationally? So I actually would like to ask this at this point, because I think that's a really interesting thing. And yeah, you ship worldwide. So how did that happen for you? What was it like creating those relationships? And also dealing with the international shipping angle, all of the logistics that come with that, especially during COVID. Yeah, would be great to hear about that.
Okay, so I guess how it started for us was really building a relationship again with our courier. So our courier is DHL, and as we built this relationship with them, that they've started with us since we were barely sending any packages internationally. As we grew, we really tended to that relationship, and we really tried to have that partnership with them. That as we grow, you'll also grow, and it's constant negotiation of the rates and everything, which should make it profitable for both of us. And another way that we were also able to scale internationally was again working with influencers and having these partnerships with these communities in other countries, because here in the Philippines, I guess it might be a little bit easier because that's where I'm from. And so there are that relationships that you already have with people. But when you try to branch out in other directions internationally, it was really that we leveraged on, which was our influencers, because we tried to communicate what our brand was to their following and their audience.
Okay, and so in terms of the influencers abroad, was it that you kind of reached out to them with a pitch to do with, okay, like this is, that this is the offering that we have, this is why it would be interesting for your audience? How did you manage that process? Was it through influencer agencies, or was it kind of a personal touch?
For us at Penny Bear, it's always a personal touch. So we try to reach out from our team specifically so that we already start building that relationship as time goes on. And for us with Penny Pairs, the influencers that we got were also, like I mentioned, people who we really believed would be a good fit for the brand. So we tried to show them that we have the same values as you, we believe in the same things as you, and that's something that would make them more likely share our story because it aligns with their story. And at the end of the day, everybody wears, I mean, all women, most women wear jewelry. And so if you're going to choose good jewelry, better choose good jewelry that is ethical and sustainable. And it's nice. It's a nice thing to share because it has more than just the beauty of it, but how it's beautifully made inside as well.
Yeah, and I saw on the website that you actually coat the jewelry in like extra thick gold coating so that it's like tarnish proof and also like hypoallergenic. I thought that was really interesting as well, because so I actually used to work in jewelry. I used to sell jewelry when I was like 16, 17. So I know exactly what you're talking about when you're talking about that experience of going into like a luxury store and then everything is like price, you have to request the price and everything's behind cabinets and you feel like you're being judged. I mean, I wasn't judging, but I definitely know that experience, and I know the markup of the jewelry industry is pretty high. And so it's really interesting hearing from you that you've not only partnered with ethical suppliers and factories, and you're really kind of going about this in such a sustainable way, but then at the same time, you're actually on top of that pouring like extra gold onto the product so that it will last for longer and so that people can cherish these items and wear them for longer. I think it's really smart and it's really big picture, because there are so many jewelry brands out there that don't necessarily think that big and think that long term. And I've seen it, and I know that you're essentially, what you're doing is you're kind of like reducing the markup in the short term, or potentially even in the long term, but to have longer relationships with consumers, like potentially even lifelong relationships. And I really value that. And I think that that's something that needs to be spoken about more, is actually, putting intention into your product so that it will last and create more memories for the people who buy them. So yeah, like really, really impressed with that. And I also wanted to ask you about this. So I heard that when you started out, you were actually creating a very different type of product, and then you started tuning into the industry. And so then the model of the product, the design of the product changed. I wonder if you could talk about that too. So the very intentional design shift quite early on in the company.
Mm-hmm. So I'm someone who is very allergic to jewelry that isn't, real jewelry. So I would break out, I would get rashes, it would be really itchy, it would be easy for it to tarnish. And that was a problem that I had initially with, different products. And I felt like it was also a problem that other women face. And it's like I realized I shouldn't be selling the kinds of jewelry that I wouldn't buy myself. And that's why I tried to find a balance between good quality jewelry that was still affordable enough for people to have access to. And yeah, that was really why the product shifted in a sense, was that it was more about also the long term. Like another thing we always say is buy better, wear longer, which is, even though you're spending a little bit more for this product, you know that it's something that you're going to be wearing in the long run.
Yeah, that's really special. And I just, the thing that I really love about Penny Pairs is very much that you have the woman who buys the product at the very center of everything. And we've already explored that through this conversation, but I just think that it's so important to highlight that every single facet of the experience has been completely designed very intentionally with a lot of love and care, and attention in every way that that's possible, right? Like sustainability is also an angle of that. It's how can we care more for the person and also for the environment. So yeah, I think that you've done a really amazing job. I know we're having a lot of questions, so I would like to ask you a couple more questions, and then we can go round to the Q&A. But I think from the perspective of e-commerce, so we're all here today to to explore how can we bring businesses like this online, and you started completely online. So how did you manage the organic relationship building, the like the physical suppliers, the physical aspects of this e-commerce business as you were starting out during a pandemic and just during a time where you're kind of balancing the online and the offline? Like, how did that happen? For example, even with your team, do you have like team members that are remote, or is it all kind of based in the Philippines? I would love for you to speak a little bit more about that balance.
So we're all based in the Philippines, but we have an office where we fulfill all our orders. But our whole marketing team is online and we work remotely. So I guess since we were already working remotely before the pandemic, it wasn't that much of a big shift,
Yeah.
I guess, compared to other companies that were working in an office before the pandemic. So for us, it wasn't that hard to just be working completely online.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think a lot of people have had to make that shift. And so it's interesting that you were even agile enough beforehand that that it didn't even affect the business. Okay, I can see a couple of questions that maybe we can ask. Okay, so we have a lot of questions. Do you plan to collaborate with physical stores from abroad to bring your products to more countries? We have from Joelle Maisel.
We do plan on collaborating with physical stores from abroad in the future, just because, we wanted Penny Bears to reach an international growth. But retail really isn't something that we're focused on right now, because as the pandemic goes on, we really believe that e-commerce is going to be the future.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, because there is a balance, right, between the like doing everything online, but then also having physical locations. I do sometimes think some brands see it as kind of a prestige thing as well to have flagship stores. But I think that with the direction that you're going in, it's so interesting that you do want everything to be online, accessible, like to kind of remove that barrier. Okay, so we have more questions. How did you manage customer support coming from your website and social media? This is from Jeremy Salomon.
Okay, so we have a customer relations manager who handles all of our customer support on our website and our social media. So her name is Joey, and she does a really good job building these relationships with our customers. And like I mentioned, it's really about having a good relationship with our customers, that sometimes she even makes friends with them. So
That's really amazing. So many years ago, I remember that Taylor Swift had literally stalked all of her fans online, found out who were her super fans, and then she hosted a party for them. And I really love thinking about that as a really good example of branding, right? Because you're literally thinking, who are the people that are enjoying my products, who are enjoying my, my creations the most, then actually celebrating those people and making them feel seen. And I think your customer relationship manager is really doing like a good job of that, and just like even making friends with customers. I think that's really special and really sweet. And I think that that's something very important for people to think about. How can you actually go the extra mile beyond what you think is the extra mile? So some people might just kind of content themselves with, okay, I'm going to be nice to my customers, but actually building a personal relationship is so much further than that. And I think that that must be really rewarding on both sides. Okay, so we have another question. And I'd like to ask anyone who has questions, please feel free to pop them in, and then we can just kind of tackle as many questions as possible. So someone said, so Maria Piedad Aguilar said, hello Camille, congrats on all your journey. I'd like to know how many collaborators you have on board, and how you manage to organize the work at hand. Do you have an organizational chart? That's really interesting. So from an operational perspective, how you're managing the business.
So I have a partner who's also one of the co-founders. We're actually two. And then under us, we have our brand manager, our marketing manager, and our operations manager. And they're the ones that handle all the different parts of our business. Our brand manager is the one, Kiana, who might be here, who does our social media content and our beautiful Instagram stories and posts all the nice things that you guys see on our Instagram. And we also have some interns who help us out sometimes. And we have 3 fulfillment staff that pack our products in our office. So we're a very small team.
Yeah, that's interesting because it sounds like you're small but really effective. And yeah, that's a very interesting point. And so is everyone working full time then with like their own piece of the business that kind of nurturing? That's interesting. Okay, so we have another question. I also wanted to ask you a question after that. So could you give some organic growth tips? Okay, so this is interesting. So I imagine this is like beyond the influencer outreach, if there was anything else that you found to be helpful for driving organic growth.
I guess for organic growth, it's just really trying to have the best possible content that you can bring out there. So it's having, beautiful pictures, really nice, clear product photos where the products are really seen from the thumbnail. I guess that's what grows us organically because people will comment and boost it naturally. They'll react to it naturally if it looks nice. So that's the best tip I could give is just really try to find that creative um, way that you can showcase your product that would make it stand out.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask about this actually, because I know that this is something that people struggle with. Do you have any tips on finding really good product photographers, designers, creative strategists, people to work with at that initial creation point of the e-commerce brand?
As I mentioned, it was something that we struggled with in the start, right? Like finding good creative partnerships that we could have. And we kept trying things out. We kept, trying out different photographers, trying different ways, like investing in photography equipment, and trying to do it ourselves, and just lots of ways that we could try how to find the best content or the best photography. And what we've learned is that you find someone that works well with you and stick with them. And that's how we've been doing it the past and like more recently is that we just found, the photographers that we worked well with that really show the kind of photography that we want to show, and we just continued to work with them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that, because I know that, for example, one of the projects that we have in Central America, as part of that project, we actually, the International Trade Center, we shot a lot of video footage and images. So it's something that I think is actually the present of many of the businesses here, is trying to figure out who are the right people to work with, how does that affect the output, creatively speaking, of the brand. So yeah, I also wanted to ask you about yourself as an entrepreneur and a founder. Do you do any mindset work, any work on yourself? Was that something that you thought about initially as you started this journey to create your own business?
I guess I do try to work a lot on myself because, if I can't be at my best self, I won't be able to have the best output. And ways that I work on myself is just I try to work out regularly. I try to have structure in my life, especially with this pandemic and we aren't really going anywhere. It's like I try to have a schedule. I try to stick to a schedule, and I try to journal every day, list down my goals, manifest the things that I want to happen for my business and even my personal life and everything. It's just trying to balance everything out so that I can be happy and healthy. And I think that would show my business in the best light, I guess.
Thank you for sharing that. One of the last talks that we had on this Get Inside series was with Vanessa Pham. She's the founder of OMSOM, and she was talking about this as well. And she said that she had actually hired her own coach, and she was doing a lot of work on her own mindset to do with money. So she was the child of Vietnamese refugees. So she was talking about how that impacted her. And I think it's something that isn't often spoken about, is actually even when you're running an e-commerce business where the founder isn't necessarily at the forefront of the business, actually working on yourself on a continuous basis scales outwards into the business in a very kind of symbiotic way. So yeah, I think it's very, very interesting that you said that. Okay, I want to ask if anyone has any questions, if they would like to either put them in the chat or unmute themselves and ask Camille directly. And if not, then I also have lots of questions that I can continue asking. So yeah, now is your moment if anyone wants to ask. Just going to give them a little bit of time to type anything in. Okay, it doesn't seem that we have anyone unmuting themselves. Does anyone want to ask any questions to Camille? Otherwise, I will just ask away. See.
Hi, this is Manuel Williams. I'm an owner of a jewelry brand as well, a sustainable one by the name Emma Bird. I'd like to say congratulations to you. I can relate to a lot of the things that you said. It's interesting to see how, there's a lot of similarities in the issues that we face, especially with building the brand from scratch and trying to be as sustainable as possible. So congratulations to you. Thank you.
Okay, if anyone else has any questions or anything that they would like to share, feel free to unmute yourself. Yeah, we have around.
Hi, Camilla. I can probably go and ask. Yeah, this is Konark. We run a B2B business called Rural Handmade. Very quickly, I wanted to understand the bottom of the pyramid, which is the artisans who are actually making the jewelries. How do we ensure as a business that whatever money that we give to the business eventually gets in the hands of the people who make it? How do we ensure that?
So the manufacturer we work with is part of the BSCI, which is the Business Social Compliance Initiative. So they can guarantee that, the factory that we work with has no child labor, no discrimination, decent working hours, a living wage, and all of these things that are very important to us as a brand. And we try to make sure that the manufacturers we work with have all these certifications, which is that, the BSCI and the Responsible Jewelry Council certification, as well as the being listed on the LBMA, which is the London Bullion Market Association Good Delivery List. So they're the global authority in precious metals. And these are the ways that we can ensure that the manufacturer we work with follows all of the ethical processes. It's just having those certificates. We make sure that they have those certifications.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more questions or any reflections from the audience? Okay, so Bianca Chang has said, hi Camille, I'm a huge fan of penny pairs. Everything is top notch, the pieces, branding, customer service, etc. Could you share which part of developing the brand has been the most enjoyable for you? Was it developing pieces, fostering relationships with customers or collaborators, the visual side of branding or marketing? Thank you, Bianca, for that question.
I guess the most enjoyable for me would really be at, designing the jewelry, just because it's what I really do enjoy doing. And the most fulfilling would probably be seeing all the user-generated content we get from the people wearing our jewelry and feeling happy that they received it, or they wear the brand, and it just makes them feel good. And that also makes me feel good because it makes me see that what we're doing is really making a difference in people's lives. So that's probably the most enjoyable part for me. Even though everything else I also enjoy, like the visual side of branding and everything. but probably the best is just seeing that happen in real life.
It's so extraordinary when you think about all of the different moving pieces of a business. And especially given how many SKUs you have, I mean, you have so many different pieces, then thinking about managing all of that, the fulfillment of all the orders, the branding, which is exceptional, all of the different components of the customer experience. It really is, you're sitting at the helm of this beautiful machine and it's just running really well. And yeah, I think it's just so extraordinary to see a brand doing this and doing it well after having been created not so long ago. You know, I think that you're a really good example for anyone listening, and just for so many of the entrepreneurs out there who are trying to create e-commerce businesses and then they're not really sure how to do it or where to get started or how to harmonize everything. I think you're a really good example of having brought together all of the pieces of the process and designed them very intentionally. I mean, until you said that you were designing the pieces, I didn't even realize that, you know, yes, that's also something that you're doing that's exceptional, designing the pieces. And I wonder if you would like to talk a little bit about that, right? So how many hats you've had to wear during this process. And I know that you make it look so easy and everyone is here listening thinking, gosh, this is like incredible that she's doing. But I wonder if you would like to talk a little bit about that process of having to just be kind of mastering all of these different aspects of the business.
Yeah, so I guess when we started and it was just me doing everything from the branding to the packing of the orders, it really made me see every single aspect of the business, which was from dealing with suppliers to dealing with customers to, packing every single piece with love. It's just that the fact that I was able to experience all of that really made me who I am today, that it really made me see all the aspects of the business, and that how much work goes into it and how much love and sweat goes into everything. It's just really, at the end of the day, it's even more fulfilling to know that there was a big process that went into this business, and that there are so many people that work to make Penny Pairs what it is today. And like what you said about me wearing many different hats, it's really true. Sometimes I forget that I need to, take a step back and stop and like let everybody just do their best, because I can't handle everything at the same time.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you have to be thinking big picture, but small picture at the same time. And that's kind of something very challenging to do, is to see all of the little pieces moving along, but then at the same time be championing this new direction and driving that forward at the same time. So I think that you're doing an amazing job at that, but it is so impressive. Okay, so we have another question. How do you deal with competitors? And I would like to add on to that question, how do you think about competitors?
So I guess it's just, sustainable jewelry might be a thing in other countries, but in the Philippines, it's really kind of unheard of. So I don't think we have much competitors in that aspect. But for me, how I see it, especially like seeing other brands sometimes copy us or do the same thing that we do, I just try to think that, like, in the long term, these are my goals, and I'm just gonna keep trying to go towards those goals of mine, and not try to think about how these other brands are doing it or how our competitors are doing it. It's just being focused on us and who we are and staying true to ourselves. And
Yeah.
really the essence of why we're doing this, which is, again, to make every day special.
Yeah, that's a really great answer. And I think a really important reminder as well to just stay focused on where you're going as a brand and try and make that the most exceptional that it can be. I do think that a lot of brands, especially now that the e-commerce space is so saturated with so many different offerings, and some of them literally just exist to, like create, more revenue for themselves rather than having a strong social mission. So I think it's really interesting that you said that, and definitely such an important thing for people to integrate into their approach, is just focus on what you're doing and the bigger goals that you have in mind, and how you're progressing towards them. I wanted to ask you as well, and please everyone add in your questions. We have a little bit of time left for questions, and you can also unmute yourselves at some point if you would like to. But in the meantime, I'll ask you another question. So I was wondering, because you are involving yourself in so many different areas of the business, especially initially, how did you manage the thinking behind that? Because I know that women in particular, we get a lot of imposter syndrome, and there is also the socialization element, right? So can I do this? Am I equipped to do this? Can I give myself permission to do this? I wonder if that's something that you experienced, and also like how you dealt with that thinking during the initial process.
Yeah, so imposter syndrome is really a thing. Like I really always feel like, how did I even get to where I am today? Especially hearing you say all these beautiful things about me. It's just like, do I really deserve this? But at the same time, it's surrounding yourself, I guess, with people who really do believe in you, and finding, a really good team of people who support you and have the same vision and the same values as you, and feel as inspired as you to continue to grow the business. And I think having a good partner who helped me grow this business and is constantly reminding me that, we got this, like everything is exactly where it needs to be, is very important. And yeah, it's just surrounding yourself with that good circle of influence.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And I think that that's actually another thing that isn't talked about very much. I know a lot of the businesses in the projects that the ITC runs, but also just using the platform, they are trying to make something happen for their business, right? They're trying to create these products, get them out into the world, ship them all over the world to customers. But I don't think that idea of the people that you spend time with, the circles and relationships that you have, has been prioritized as much when it comes to, what makes e-commerce success. It's not something that's often talked about, but I really agree with that. And I think that actually the standards that those people hold themselves to and the way that they think about things is so important, because if you have someone that's happy with like good enough, then of course that translates across the packaging, across the way that you're visually represented, the things that you say online, the way that you say them. And so I really agree with not only having the right people in your life to support you through those rocky changes and new moments where you feel like you're jumping off a cliff, but also the actual standard raising of the business as it grows, because of course you have to have people to uphold the constant shift in growth. Okay, so we have another question from Bianca. She wanted to know, how did you meet your partner?
I met my partner in college, so that's how.
So everyone go back to college. Yeah, that's funny. I think so. In your case, is it your partner who's your partner and your business partner, or is it just your business partner?
Both.
Okay, yeah, I think that's probably why she was asking, because I think a lot of people, when they're starting their business, they're trying to find like the right people to start them with. What I'm seeing a lot of at the moment is actually people who are friends being in business, people who are in relationships being in business. So it's interesting that you're blending the two of them as well. Okay, does anyone have any more questions that they would like to ask, either via the chat or by unmuting themselves?
I can quickly ask one last thing, if you may. Yeah. Just very quickly, Kamala, I mean, I was just having a deep dive into the earlier comment you made about the certifications and the compliances. How does a small business really differentiate with the likes of Zara and all the big brands? Because they have a similar narrative. They have all the compliances. They have exactly the same story. So how does one really stand out?
Do you mean how do we stand out compared to brands like Zara? I feel like it really is adding a personal touch to the brand. It's that, we have a story of how we started, when we started it, and it's relating to the customer in that way that, hey, you know us, like you've known us, like you know how we looked like when we started, and our growth and everything. And that's what makes a small business really different from the larger brands. And as I mentioned, like we're not a retail store. So there isn't that feeling of, when you enter the store, you kind of are not sure if you'll be able to afford whatever it is in that store, because we're very transparent and at the same time very accommodating and friendly. And that's something that we try to communicate a lot with our brand, is that we're easy to talk to. It's not like a corporation that there's a lot of ways that you can connect with the brand. With us, it's like we try to have all these touch points that really share our story and relate to the customer.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have some more questions. So firstly, Salam, we will share a recording. It should be up tomorrow, I would say by early afternoon. So you can check that out on ecomConnect. Jean's Place is asking about the partnership. How and what were your convictions that you would both do well together to grow the business? Getting a partner with same goals and aspirations have been difficult for entrepreneurs. So I think that's on the business front. That question.
I guess the way that we, knew that we would be able to work well together and grow the business together is that we're very alike in the mindset that we can always improve. Like what I mentioned is that we're always trying to learn new things. We never went into it saying that, okay, this is what we know and this is what we're going to do. How we see it is that, how do we get better? It's always, how do we get better? And it's, as I said, trying to understand our customer and really understanding that it's the essence of our business, is that making every day special. And that's something we both agreed on from the start. It's that it's not about us, it's not about what the company wants, it's about what our customer wants. And that's a goal that I think will really keep you together to grow the business together. It's just having that clear communication of what this is.
Yeah, and I think that you referred to this earlier as well when you talked about having people on your team who have the same values and the same vision. That's so important to make it kind of bigger than yourself and actually have everyone moving in the same direction. So I read a book not so long ago called Hug Your Customers. And that was, I don't know if anyone here has read that, but it's a really good book about customer service and essentially just kind of, thinking about what they want and what serves them in their lives. And, everything that you were saying today is actually reminding me of that book, because that's exactly what they were saying, is actually, it's not about you and what you're trying to get from the customer. It's actually, how can you create an experience that really inspires them and makes them feel seen and heard? So we have Jeremy asking for Cam, can one be a reseller or sign up for a partnership with Penny Pairs?
So for now, we don't have any programs that do reselling, but we do have some partnerships. So we'll be launching an affiliate partnership program soon where people can sign up to have specific codes that will enable them to get some commission from selling the product. But that's just something we're still working on and it's still being developed.
Okay, so Jeremy, stay tuned for that one. Okay, so we don't have that much time left. I wonder if anyone wants to come in and ask any final questions via the chat or by unmuting themselves, and then we'll wrap up.
I think nobody's opting in. I'll probably ask the last one then. Hi, Kimla. Could you just share some SEO tips? How are you able to compete? Because I understand, I think jewelry is a very competitive space. Like hundreds of people are bidding for keywords. How did you pick through this?
So SEO. SEO is something that I'm not super familiar with, but I know you run Google ads and I know you run Facebook ads, and I know that our website does have those specific certain tags for SEO, and we try to build that more by we're starting our blog on our website that have more of the keywords that we feel like will rise us up in the rankings for SEO. So that's sustainable jewelry and everything that's just related to your brand that you want. If you think that people would have that connection of your brand with, what they're searching. So it's through, like, I think you've mentioned that you saw our website, the About Us page and our sustainability page. And we put a lot of information there that I feel like when people search that in Google, that's what comes up for our website. So it's having those website pages. I think that would help.
Yeah, and I think also what Camille shared earlier is really important, right? So talking to the person who actually is interested in buying what you have to sell, versus a lot of the time the SEO best practices will highlight keywords that are high propensity, but they might not necessarily resonate with the people that really would become diehard fanatics for your brand. So bearing them in mind at every stage of the process, which it sounds like you've been doing, Camille, I think is a really good advice. Okay, so we're kind of out of time at the moment, so I'm going to wrap up. Again, if anyone has any final questions, then we can see if Camille has time to address them. But in the meantime, I would just like to give you a chance to tell us where we can find you, where we can follow you, anything that you'd like for us to kind of bear in mind, any initiatives that you're launching. Yeah, I'd like to give you the floor.
So you can follow us on @pennypairs on Instagram and pennypairs.com, and everything that we'll be launching the next few months will be on our Instagram and our website. So I guess it's just watching out for those more sustainability initiatives that are exciting.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. A lot of people have been commenting that they found this session really informative, that they loved the insights. Thank you for being here. We're really, really grateful that you took the time. Everyone, please go and follow Penny Pairs online, and I'm sure we'll hear lots of exciting things about their sustainability initiatives in the coming months. And yeah, thank you again, Camille. We really just loved having you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It really is such an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.